Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in chambers that dwarf entire cities, something stirs. Ancient titans that have slumbered for millennia, their breath capable of reshaping continents, and their awakening promised to rewrite the very story of human civilization. These aren't mythical creatures from forgotten legends. They're supervolcanoes. And right now, as you're watching this video, scientists around the world are losing sleep over a terrifying possibility that keeps them awake at night. What if they all woke up tomorrow? I'm talking about geological monsters like Yellowstone, Toba, and the Campi Flegrei, each one a ticking time bomb buried beneath our feet. These aren't your typical volcanoes that might destroy a town or two. No, these are planet killers, capable of plunging our world into a nuclear winter that could last for years, collapsing entire ecosystems, and potentially ending human civilization as we know it. And here's the thing that'll make your skin crawl. We have absolutely no idea when they're going to blow. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like the plot of a disaster movie, right? Something Hollywood cooked up to sell tickets. But I've spent the last 6 months diving deep into the latest research, speaking with volcanologists, seismologists, and atmospheric scientists who monitor these sleeping giants. What I discovered isn't just fascinating, it's genuinely terrifying. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why some of the world's most brilliant minds consider supervolcanic eruptions to be one of the most serious existential threats facing humanity today. But first, let me paint you a picture of what we're actually dealing with here. Because when most people think of volcanoes, they imagine something like Mount St. Helens or Mount Vesuvius. Impressive, sure, but compared to a supervolcano, these are like comparing a firecracker to a hydrogen bomb. A supervolcano isn't just bigger, it's fundamentally different. These are collapsed volcanic systems called calderas, massive depressions in the Earth's crust that can span hundreds of miles across. Yellowstone's caldera, for instance, is roughly 30 by 45 miles. That's larger than the entire city of Los Angeles. And beneath that caldera lies a magma chamber so vast that if you could drain it, you could fit multiple Mount Everests inside with room to spare. The last time Yellowstone erupted as a supervolcano was 640,000 years ago. The Huckleberry Ridge eruption, which happened 2.1 million years ago, was even more devastating. It ejected over 600 cubic miles of material into the atmosphere. To put that in perspective, that's enough volcanic debris to bury the entire state of Pennsylvania under 3 feet of ash and rock. But here's where it gets really interesting and really scary. Scientists have identified at least 20 known supervolcanoes around the globe, and they're not evenly distributed. Some are hiding in plain sight. The Campi Flegrei, just west of Naples, Italy, sits beneath one of the most densely populated regions in Europe. Over 3 million people live directly above this sleeping giant, going about their daily lives, completely unaware that beneath their feet lies a volcanic system capable of ending European civilization. Lake Toba in Indonesia represents another nightmare scenario. When it last erupted 74,000 years ago, it came closer to wiping out humanity than any other natural disaster in recorded history. The explosion was so massive that it created a volcanic winter lasting 6 years. Global temperatures dropped by as much as 15 degrees Celsius in some regions. Genetic evidence suggests that the entire human population was reduced to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals. We were literally on the brink of extinction. Now, imagine if something like that happened tomorrow, in our interconnected, technologically dependent world. The immediate effects would be catastrophic beyond anything we've ever experienced. Within minutes of a major supervolcanic eruption, pyroclastic flows moving at speeds of up to 450 miles per hour would incinerate everything within hundreds of miles of ground zero. These aren't just flows of lava. They're superheated avalanches of gas, ash, and rock fragments that can reach temperatures of over 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing survives them. Nothing. But that's just the beginning. The real nightmare starts when millions of tons of volcanic ash and sulfur dioxide get blasted into the stratosphere. This isn't the kind of ash you might find in your fireplace. Volcanic ash is essentially powdered glass and rock. It's abrasive, corrosive, and when it gets into your lungs, it can cause a condition called silicosis, which is often fatal. Dr. Michael Rampino, a geologist at New York University who spent decades studying supervolcanic eruptions, described it to me this way. He said, "Imagine if someone took sandpaper and ground it into the finest powder imaginable, then forced you to breathe it. That's what volcanic ash does to your respiratory system. Within hours of a major eruption, ash clouds would begin circling the globe. Aircraft would be grounded worldwide because volcanic ash can cause jet engines catastrophe to failically. We saw a small taste of this in 2010, when Iceland's Eyjafjallajökull volcano erupted and shut down European airspace for nearly a week. Now multiply that disruption by a factor of 1,000. The global supply chain, already fragile as we've learned from recent pandemic experiences, would collapse almost instantly. Container ships and cargo planes wouldn't be able to move goods. Ports and airports would close. Within days, supermarket shelves would empty and stay empty. But the transportation nightmare would be just the tip of the iceberg. The real catastrophe would unfold over the following months and years as volcanic winter set in. All that ash and sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere would create a massive reflective layer, bouncing sunlight back into space and causing global temperatures to plummet. Agricultural systems around the world would fail. Crops need sunlight and warmth to grow, and a major supervolcanic eruption would rob them of both. The 1,815 eruption of Mount Tambora, which was just a regular volcano, not even a supervolcano, caused what historians call the year without a summer. Crops failed across Europe and North America. Famine spread. In some regions, people were reduced to eating tree bark and grass to survive. A supervolcanic eruption would make the Tambora disaster look like a minor inconvenience. Food production would collapse, but the demand would remain. 7.5 billion people would still need to eat. The mathematics of this scenario are stark and terrifying. Dr. Alan Robock, a climate scientist at Rutgers University who models volcanic winter scenarios, ran the numbers for me. His research suggests that a Yellowstone-scale eruption could reduce global food production by up to 90% in the first year alone. 90%. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about mass starvation on a scale that humanity has never experienced. Social order would break down. Governments would fall. The lucky ones would be the people who died in the initial eruption, because what comes after would be far worse. And here's the truly chilling part. We have no way to stop it. None. Zero. When a supervolcano decides to erupt, all of human technology, all of our scientific knowledge, all of our nuclear weapons and space programs and artificial intelligence become completely irrelevant. We become passengers on a planet that's decided to reshape itself, and there's absolutely nothing we can do except try to survive the aftermath. This isn't some distant, theoretical threat either. Right now, as you're watching this video, monitoring stations around Yellowstone are detecting subtle changes that have some scientists genuinely concerned. The ground in parts of the caldera has been rising and falling in patterns that suggest the magma chamber beneath is becoming more active. Earthquake swarms, small but persistent, rattle through the region with increasing frequency. Dr. who leads the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, Robert Smith from the University of Utah, gives me chills. He said, "We know told me something that still it's going to erupt again. We just don't know when. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 100,000 years, but the signs we're seeing now are unlike anything we've observed before. The Campi Flegrei in Italy is showing even more alarming signs. The entire region has been experiencing what volcanologists call bradyseism, a gradual rising and falling of the ground level that indicates magma movement below. In the 1982nd, parts of the town of Pozzuoli rose by over 6 feet. The activity has increased dramatically in recent years, with thousands of small earthquakes rattling the region annually. Italian authorities have raised the alert level multiple times, but what can they really do? Evacuate 3 million people? Where would they go? How would you even begin to organize something like that? The truth is, we're not prepared for this. Not even close. Our emergency response systems, our evacuation plans, our food stockpiles, they're all designed for localized disasters. Hurricanes, earthquakes, terrorist attacks, even pandemics. But a supervolcanic eruption would be a global catastrophe that would make all of our preparations seem laughably inadequate. Some scientists have proposed wild solutions, drilling into the magma chambers to release pressure gradually, using nuclear weapons to trigger controlled eruptions, building massive dome structures to contain the blast. But these ideas range from technically impossible to absolutely insane. One miscalculation and you could trigger the very disaster you're trying to prevent. The reality is that if a supervolcano decides to wake up tomorrow, humanity would face its greatest test since we first walked upright on the African savanna. And unlike our ancestors, we can't just migrate to a different continent and start over. There is no away. There is no escape. There is only the hope that we could somehow adapt and survive in a world turned upside down. But before you start building a bunker in your backyard, there's something else you need to know about these geological monsters. Something that changes everything about how we think about the threat they pose and what we might be able to do about it. Because here's what most people don't understand about supervolcanoes, and it's something that fundamentally changes the entire equation. These aren't just random acts of geological violence. They're part of a system, a planetary mechanism that's been operating for billions of years. And the more we study them, the more we realize that the Earth itself might be trying to tell us something. Dr. Catherine Hickson, a volcanologist who spent her career studying caldera systems, put it to me this way: we've been thinking about supervolcanoes all wrong. We treat them like they're isolated events, but they're not. They're connected to everything. The movement of tectonic plates, the circulation of the mantle, even the rotation of the Earth itself. When one system changes, everything changes. And right now, multiple systems are changing simultaneously in ways we've never seen before. The Yellowstone hotspot, for instance, isn't stationary. It's been moving across North America for the past 17 million years, leaving a trail of massive eruptions in its wake. The Snake River Plain in Idaho is essentially a graveyard of ancient supervolcanic explosions, each one marking where this underground furnace passed through on its journey eastward. But here's what's keeping scientists awake at night. The hotspot's movement appears to be accelerating. Geological evidence suggests that the intervals between major eruptions are getting shorter, not longer. And it's not just Yellowstone. Around the globe, other supervolcanic systems are showing signs of synchronization that nobody fully understands. In 2018, something unprecedented happened. Within a single month, monitoring stations detected increased seismic activity at Yellowstone, Campi Flegrei, and Toba simultaneously. The chances of this being coincidence are astronomical. It's like having 3 different alarm clocks, set by different people in different countries, all going off at exactly the same time. Dr. Eric Clemetti from Denison University has been tracking these patterns for years. His research suggests that we might be entering what he calls a supervolcanic active period, similar to what happened during the late Permian period, when multiple massive eruptions contributed to the worst mass extinction in Earth's history. The geological record shows us that these events cluster, he told me during a late-night phone call that I'll never forget. They don't happen randomly across time. They come in waves. And all the data we're collecting suggests we might be at the beginning of a new wave. This clustering effect has profound implications for human civilization. If one supervolcano erupts, it could trigger a domino effect that awakens others. The massive pressure changes in the Earth's crust, the redistribution of magma, the alteration of tectonic stress patterns, All of this could act like a geological house of cards. Imagine Yellowstone erupting first. The ash cloud would devastate North American agriculture and disrupt global climate patterns. But the real nightmare scenario begins if the eruption triggers seismic activity along the Ring of Fire, potentially awakening the Toba system or causing new calderas to form. We've seen smaller versions of this domino effect throughout history. The 1815 Tambora eruption was followed by increased volcanic activity worldwide. The 1883 Krakatoa explosion preceded a decade of unusual seismic activity across the Pacific, but we've never experienced what multiple simultaneous supervolcanic eruptions could do to our planet. Computer models run by climatologists paint a picture that's almost too horrifying to contemplate. Multiple supervolcanic eruptions within a short time frame could create a volcanic winter so severe that it might trigger a new ice age. Global temperatures could drop by 20 degrees Celsius or more. The growing season in most agricultural regions would be reduced to zero for years, possibly decades. But the climate effects would only be the beginning of our problems. The electromagnetic pulses generated by massive volcanic eruptions could destroy satellite networks and power grids. The ash clouds would create constant electrical storms that would make radio communication nearly impossible. GPS systems would fail. The internet would collapse. In essence, we'd be thrown back into the Stone Age, except with 7.5 billion people who have no idea how to survive without modern technology. Dr. Michael Manger from UC Berkeley has been studying the precursor signals that might give us warning before a supervolcanic eruption. His work offers a glimmer of hope, but also reveals just how limited our understanding really is. We can detect ground deformation, changes in gas emissions, earthquake swarms, he explained to me. But translating those signals into actual eruption timing is like trying to predict exactly when a pot of water will boil by listening to the sounds it makes. We know something's happening, but the exact moment of eruption could be tomorrow or in 1,000 years. The monitoring systems we have in place are impressive, but they're designed to study normal volcanic activity. Supervolcanoes operate on completely different timescales and follow patterns we're only beginning to understand. The magma chambers are so massive that they create their own weather systems underground. Convection currents that take decades to complete a single cycle. Chemical processes that unfold over centuries. And then there's the human factor, which might be the most unpredictable element of all. How would our species react to the knowledge that a civilization-ending eruption was imminent? Would we come together in unprecedented cooperation, or would society collapse into chaos before the first ash cloud even appeared? Historical precedent isn't encouraging. During the Black Death, social order broke down across Europe. During the Irish potato famine, people starved while food was shipped to other countries. During World War II, genocide occurred while the world focused on military strategy. Now imagine a crisis that makes all of those seem manageable by comparison. A crisis that affects every person on Earth simultaneously. A crisis that our technology can't solve and our governments can't prevent. Dr. Lucy Jones, a seismologist who spent years studying disaster preparedness, painted a stark picture when I asked her about supervolcanic eruption scenarios. We've built our entire civilization on the assumption that the earth beneath us is stable, she said. Our cities, our infrastructure, our economic systems, our food distribution networks, everything assumes that tomorrow will be basically like today. A supervolcanic eruption would violate that assumption so completely that I'm not sure our social systems could survive the shock. But there might be one factor that could change everything. One possibility that most scientists are afraid to even discuss publicly because of how it could reshape our understanding of these geological time bombs. Because what if the supervolcanoes aren't just random geological events? What if they're connected to something much larger? Something that's been influencing Earth's geology for millions of years? Something that would explain not just when they might erupt, but why they seem to be synchronizing their activity right now, at this moment in human history. The answer to that question lies buried in ice cores from Antarctica, in deep ocean sediment samples, and in astronomical data that reveals a pattern so vast and so precise that it challenges everything we thought we knew about how our planet works. And when you understand this pattern, when you see how it connects to cycles of mass extinction and climate change going back hundreds of millions of years, you'll realize that the threat we're facing might be even bigger than we imagined. But it also might give us the key to survival that we desperately need. The pattern I'm talking about isn't something you'll find in any mainstream geology textbook. It's been hiding in plain sight for decades, dismissed by most scientists as coincidence, but a small group of researchers have been quietly piecing together evidence that suggests our planet's most violent geological events aren't random at all. Dr. Richard Mueller, a physicist at UC Berkeley, first stumbled onto this connection while studying extinction patterns in the fossil record. What he discovered was so controversial that it nearly ended his career. Every 26 to 30 million years, like clockwork, Earth experiences what he calls geological reset events, mass extinctions, massive volcanic eruptions, climate upheavals that reshape the entire planet. The precision of this timing is what makes it so unsettling. We're not talking about rough estimates or general trends. We're talking about a cycle so regular that you could set your watch by it if your watch happened to measure millions of years instead of seconds. And here's the terrifying part. Based on Mueller's calculations, we're right at the beginning of a new cycle. The geological reset clock is ticking, and all the signs suggest that the alarm is about to go off. But what could possibly drive such a massive, planet-wide pattern? What force is powerful enough to synchronize volcanic activity across continents and trigger mass extinctions with such horrifying regularity? The answer lies not beneath our feet, but above our heads, far above. Our solar system, you see, isn't just floating randomly through space. It's orbiting around the center of the Milky Way galaxy, completing one full revolution every 225 to 250 million years. But that's not the important part. The important part is that as we orbit, we also bob up and down through the galactic plane, like a horse on a cosmic carousel. Every 26 to 30 million years, our solar system passes through the galactic disk, a region dense with dark matter, cosmic radiation, and gravitational anomalies that can affect everything from asteroid orbits to the internal dynamics of planets. Dr. Adrian Mellott, an astrophysicist at the University of Kansas, has been studying this galactic connection for over 2 decades. His research suggests that these passages through the galactic plane create gravitational tidal forces that can destabilize comet clouds, sending swarms of cosmic debris hurtling toward the inner solar system. But more importantly for our discussion, these same forces can affect the internal structure of planets. Think of Earth like a balloon filled with liquid, Mellott explained to me. When you squeeze it from the outside, the liquid inside has to go somewhere. The same thing happens when our planet passes through regions of increased gravitational stress. The magma chambers beneath supervolcanoes experience pressure changes that can trigger eruptions. This isn't just theoretical speculation anymore. In 2019, a team of researchers led by Dr. Michael Rampino published a paper in the journal Geology that tracked volcanic activity over the past 260 million years. What they found was stunning. Major volcanic eruptions, including supervolcanic events, cluster around the same 26 to 30 million year intervals that correspond to our galaxy crossings. The implications are staggering. If this pattern holds true, then the recent increase in supervolcanic activity we've been observing isn't just coincidence. It's part of a cosmic schedule that's been running for billions of years, and we're approaching the next major checkpoint. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. The researchers didn't just find correlation between galactic position and volcanic activity. They found that the most devastating events in Earth's history, the ones that came closest to ending all life on our planet, happened during these galactic crossings. The Permian-Triassic extinction, which killed 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial species, occurred 252 million years ago, right on schedule. The Ordovician-Silurian extinction, 444 million years ago, same pattern. The late Devonian extinction, 375 million years ago, perfectly timed with another galactic crossing. Each time our solar system passes through the galactic plane, Earth gets hammered by a combination of cosmic radiation, gravitational stress, and increased impact events that can trigger the kind of geological chaos we're seeing signs of right now. Dr. Henrik Svensmark from the Danish National Space Institute has taken this research even further. His work suggests that cosmic radiation levels increase dramatically during these galactic crossings, and this radiation can seed cloud formation in Earth's atmosphere, leading to rapid climate changes that can trigger ice ages or warming periods. We're not just talking about volcanic eruptions, Svensmark told me during a video call from Copenhagen. We're talking about a complete reorganization of Earth's climate system, driven by forces from outside our solar system. The supervolcanoes are just one part of a much larger pattern of disruption, and the timing couldn't be worse for human civilization. We've built our entire modern world during one of the most geologically stable periods in Earth's history. The last major galactic crossing was about 15 million years ago, long before humans existed. We have no cultural memory of what these events look like, no preparation for the kind of planetary upheaval that's apparently heading our way. But the cosmic connection explains something that has puzzled volcanologists for years. Why are multiple supervolcanic systems showing signs of increased activity simultaneously? Why are earthquake patterns shifting globally? Why are magnetic field fluctuations increasing? If Earth is entering a period of increased cosmic stress, then everything is connected. The rising ground at Yellowstone, the seismic activity at Campi Flegrei, the unusual earthquake swarms along the Ring of Fire, they're all symptoms of the same underlying cause. Our planet is responding to forces that operate on a scale so vast that we can barely comprehend them. Dr. Paul Laviolette, a systems theorist who spent decades studying galactic cycles, put it to me this way. Imagine you're an ant living on a drumhead. Most of the time the drum is quiet, and you go about your ant business thinking the world is stable. But every so often someone strikes the drum, and your entire world shakes. The ant has no concept of the drummer or the rhythm, but the shaking follows a pattern whether the ant understands it or not. We're the ants, and the galactic crossing is the drumbeat. But this cosmic perspective also offers something that purely geological studies can't: predictability. If the pattern holds, and there's strong evidence that it does, then we might actually be able to forecast not just individual eruptions, but entire cycles of geological activity. The current data suggests we're in the early stages of a new cycle. The increased cosmic radiation, the gravitational stress, the clustering of volcanic activity, all of it points to a period of geological instability that could last anywhere from 100,000 to 2 million years. That might sound like a long time from a human perspective, but it's an eye blink in geological terms. And the peak intensity of these cycles typically occurs within the first few thousand years, which means we could be looking at the most dangerous period for supervolcanic activity in millions of years. Dr. Douglas Vogt, an independent researcher who's been tracking these cycles for over 40 years, has developed models that suggest the peak danger period could begin within the next few decades. His calculations, based on magnetic field variations and solar activity patterns, point to a window between 2030 and 2050 as the most likely time frame for major geological disruption. The signs are accelerating, Vogt told me during a phone conversation that left me staring at the ceiling for hours afterward. Solar magnetic field reversals, increasing cosmic radiation, changes in the Earth's rotation rate, fluctuations in the magnetic poles. These are all indicators that we're approaching a threshold, and when we cross it, everything changes. The magnetic pole shifts that have been making headlines in recent years suddenly take on new significance when viewed through this cosmic lens. The magnetic field isn't just wandering randomly. It's responding to the same galactic forces that affect volcanic systems and climate patterns. GPS systems have been requiring constant recalibration as the magnetic poles drift at accelerating rates. Airlines have had to reprogram their navigation systems. Even migrating animals that rely on magnetic fields for navigation have been showing signs of confusion. These aren't isolated problems. They're all connected symptoms of a planet under increasing cosmic stress. But the most chilling aspect of this research isn't what it tells us about the past or even the present. It's what it suggests about the immediate future. Because if the galactic cycle theory is correct, then the recent increase in supervolcanic activity isn't just a warning. It's the opening movement of a planetary symphony that's been playing for billions of years, and we're about to hear the crescendo. Dr. Anthony Perrat, a plasma physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory, has been studying how cosmic radiation affects planetary systems. His research suggests that as our solar system moves deeper into regions of increased galactic density, Earth will experience not just geological upheaval, but electromagnetic disruption on a scale that could cripple our technology-dependent civilization. The same cosmic forces that can trigger supervolcanic eruptions can also generate electromagnetic pulses powerful enough to destroy power grids and satellite networks, Perrat explained. We could be looking at a perfect storm where geological disasters coincide with the complete collapse of our communication and transportation infrastructure. Imagine trying to coordinate disaster response and evacuations during a supervolcanic eruption when all the satellites are dead, the internet is down, and power grids across multiple continents have failed. Imagine trying to distribute food and medical supplies when GPS navigation doesn't work and radio communications are jammed by atmospheric interference. The cosmic connection doesn't just explain why supervolcanoes might erupt simultaneously. It explains why our response capabilities might be completely disabled at exactly the moment we need them most. But there's another aspect of this galactic cycle that most researchers are reluctant to discuss publicly because it challenges some of our most fundamental assumptions about how the universe works. What if these cycles aren't just destructive? What if they're also evolutionary catalysts that drive biological and even technological development forward? What if the apparent randomness of major evolutionary leaps and the sudden emergence of intelligence on Earth isn't random at all, but tied to these same cosmic rhythms? The evidence for this is scattered across multiple disciplines, but it's building into a picture that's both fascinating and terrifying. Because if evolution itself is tied to galactic cycles, then we might be approaching not just a geological reset, but a biological one as well. And that possibility changes everything about how we should be preparing for what's coming. The biological reset theory isn't something you'll find discussed in mainstream academic circles. It's too controversial, too challenging to conventional thinking about evolution and human development. But there's a small group of researchers who've been quietly documenting patterns that suggest our species might be hardwired to respond to these cosmic cycles in ways we're only beginning to understand. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a cellular biologist who studied how environmental stress affects genetic expression, discovered something remarkable while researching how cells respond to electromagnetic radiation. Under certain types of cosmic stress, similar to what Earth experiences during galactic crossings, cellular DNA doesn't just mutate randomly. It activates dormant genetic sequences that have been sitting unuses like the cells haved in our genome for millions of years. It backup programs, Lipton explained during a research meeting I attended last year. When environmental stress reaches certain thresholds, genetic switches flip on that haven't been active since our early evolutionary history. We're talking about capabilities that modern humans don't normally express. but that might be essential for surviving the kind of planetary upheaval we're heading toward. This isn't science fiction. This is documented cellular biology, and the timing is unsettling. Reports from medical researchers around the world are noting unusual increases in certain genetic variations, particularly in children born in the last decade. Enhanced pattern recognition abilities, increased sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, unusual resistance to radiation exposure. Dr. Patricia Gerbarg, a psychiatrist who's been tracking these genetic changes, told me something that still gives me chills. We're seeing neurological developments in young people that shouldn't be possible, according to our current understanding of human genetics. It's as if their brains are preparing for environmental conditions that don't exist yet, but might very soon. The children showing these traits often display an intuitive understanding of complex systems that typically takes years of education to develop. They can sense weather changes days in advance. They seem to know when earthquakes are coming before seismographs detect the first tremors. And they're drawn to information about geological processes and cosmic cycles in ways that their parents find both fascinating and disturbing. Could these be evolutionary adaptations triggered by the same cosmic forces that are destabilizing our planet's geological systems? Are we witnessing the beginning of a species-wide transformation designed to help humanity survive what's coming? The archaeological record suggests this has happened before. During previous galactic crossings, the fossil record shows rapid evolutionary jumps that scientists have never been able to adequately explain. The sudden appearance of complex life forms, the rapid development of intelligence, the emergence of technologies that seem too advanced for their time period. Ancient structures around the world show engineering capabilities that mainstream archaeology insists couldn't have existed when they were built. Precision stone cutting that rivals modern laser technology. Acoustic properties that require advanced understanding of sound waves. Astronomical alignments that demonstrate knowledge of cosmic cycles that we've only recently rediscovered. What if these weren't built by primitive civilizations struggling with Bronze Age tools? What if they were built by humans whose genetic potential had been activated by previous galactic crossings, giving them capabilities that disappeared when the cosmic stress subsided? Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist who's studied these ancient sites, has found evidence that many of them were designed specifically to survive massive geological upheavals. These structures weren't just ceremonial. He told me during a site visit to the Giza Plateau, they were built by people who understood that catastrophic changes were coming, and they wanted to preserve knowledge and possibly shelter populations through periods of extreme environmental stress. The precision required to build these monuments suggests mathematical and engineering knowledge that rivals or exceeds our current capabilities. But more importantly, their locations often correspond to areas of unusual geological stability, places that would remain habitable even during periods of massive volcanic activity and climate disruption. It's as if our ancestors, during previous cosmic cycles, developed the ability to predict not just when geological catastrophes would occur, but where the safe zones would be located. And they left us maps in the form of stone monuments that we've been misinterpreting for centuries. But here's where this biological reset theory becomes truly mind-bending. What if the technological acceleration we've experienced in the last century isn't just human ingenuity? What if it's part of the same cosmic cycle that's driving geological instability? Think about it. The timing is remarkably precise. Just as we're entering a period of increased galactic stress, humanity suddenly develops technologies that could potentially help us survive planetary-scale disasters. Space travel, global communication networks, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, underground construction capabilities. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, a biologist who studies what he calls morphic resonance, has proposed that knowledge itself might be influenced by cosmic cycles. Information doesn't exist in isolation, Sheldrake explained during a lecture I attended in London. It's part of field effects that can be influenced by galactic-scale electromagnetic phenomena. during certain cosmic alignments, humans might gain access to information that's normally beyond our reach. This could explain the sudden bursts of technological innovation that seem to come from nowhere. Why multiple inventors working independently often discover the same things simultaneously. Why breakthrough scientific insights often occur to researchers who are working on completely different problems. The internet, which has revolutionized human communication and information sharing, emerged just as cosmic radiation levels began increasing in the 1992nd. Genetic engineering techniques that allow us to modify organisms for survival in extreme environments developed during the same timeframe. Space exploration technologies that could potentially allow human evacuation from Earth accelerated dramatically in the last 2 decades. Coincidence? Or are we unconsciously preparing for something that our species somehow knows is coming? Dr. James Lovelock, the scientist who developed the Gaia hypothesis, believes that Earth itself might be influencing human technological development. The planet is a self-regulating system, Lovelock told me during one of our conversations. When it faces existential threats, it develops mechanisms to preserve life. Humans might not be separate from that system. We might be Gaia's way of developing technologies needed for planetary survival. But the most disturbing aspect of the biological reset theory isn't what it suggests about human evolution, it's what it implies about timing. Because if these genetic and technological changes are responses to cosmic stress, then their acceleration suggests that the peak danger period might be much closer than most scientists are willing to admit. The children showing unusual capabilities are now entering their teens and early 20s, the generation that might need these enhanced abilities to survive what's coming. The technological infrastructure that could support civilization through a period of geological chaos is just reaching maturity. The space technologies that might allow human expansion beyond Earth are finally becoming practical. It's as if everything is converging toward a narrow window of opportunity, a brief period when humanity will have both the genetic adaptations and the technological capabilities needed to survive a planetary reset. Miss that window, and we might not get another chance. Dr. Michio Kaku, the theoretical physicist, has been studying this convergence of factors. His calculations suggest that we're approaching what he calls a species decision point, a moment when humanity will either successfully navigate the transition to a spacefaring civilization capable of surviving planetary catastrophes, or face extinction, like countless other species that failed to adapt to cosmic cycles. The universe isn't random, Kaku explained during a recent interview. It operates according to patterns that repeat across vast scales of time and space. Civilizations that understand these patterns and prepare accordingly survive. Those that don't disappear. We're being tested right now, and most people don't even realize it. The test isn't just about surviving supervolcanic eruptions or climate disruption. It's about whether our species can evolve quickly enough to match the pace of cosmic change. Whether we can develop the technologies and social systems needed to maintain civilization during periods of extreme planetary instability. And the clock is ticking faster than most people realize. Recent data from the European Space Agency's magnetic field monitoring satellites shows that Earth's magnetic field isn't just shifting, it's weakening at an accelerating rate. In some regions, the field strength has dropped by 20% in just the last 2 decades. This isn't gradual geological change. This is rapid system instability that could cascade into complete magnetic pole reversal within years, not centuries. When that happens, Earth's protection from cosmic radiation will temporarily disappear. The same radiation that might be triggering genetic changes in human populations will intensify dramatically. Surface life will be exposed to radiation levels that could cause mass extinctions, but might also accelerate evolutionary adaptations in surviving populations. Dr. Daniel Baker, who directs the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado, has been modeling what happens to planetary systems during magnetic field reversals. His research suggests that these events don't just affect geology and biology, they affect consciousness itself. Electromagnetic fields influence brain function in ways we're still discovering, Baker told me during a visit to his laboratory. When planetary magnetic fields destabilize, it can alter neural activity patterns across entire populations. We might be looking at changes in human consciousness that coincide with geological upheaval. This could explain the increasing reports of enhanced intuitive abilities, prophetic dreams, and spontaneous knowledge that people around the world have been experiencing. It could also explain why so many individuals are feeling an urgent need to prepare for catastrophic changes, even when they can't rationally explain why. The convergence of geological, biological, and consciousness changes suggests that we're not just approaching a supervolcanic eruption cycle. We're approaching a complete planetary transformation that will test every aspect of human civilization and human nature. But there's one more factor that makes this convergence even more significant. Something that connects all these cycles to a larger cosmic rhythm that operates on scales so vast that it challenges our understanding of time itself. Because what if the 26 to 30 million year galactic crossing cycle is just one layer of a much more complex cosmic pattern? What if there are longer cycles, measured in hundreds of millions of years, that coordinate even larger transformations across multiple star systems and galactic regions? Recent observations from the James Webb Space Telescope have detected synchronized stellar activity patterns across vast regions of our galactic neighborhood. Stars, separated by thousands of light years, are showing correlated changes in their magnetic fields and radiation output. Galaxy clusters, hundreds of millions of light years apart, are displaying similar patterns of gravitational wave emissions. It's as if the universe itself operates according to rhythms that make our 26 million year cycle look like a single heartbeat in a much longer symphony. Dr. Holton Arp, an astronomer who spent decades studying these large-scale cosmic patterns before his death, believed that we were witnessing the early stages of what he called a universal reset event, a transformation that would affect not just our planet or our solar system, but entire regions of the observable universe. The patterns are too precise to be coincidental, Arp wrote in his final papers. We're seeing evidence of organizational principles that operate across scales from quantum to cosmic. Earth's geological cycles, human evolution, technological development, even consciousness itself might all be expressions of the same underlying universal rhythm. If Arp was right, then the supervolcanic threat we're facing isn't just about surviving geological catastrophe. It's about participating in a cosmic transformation that could fundamentally alter the nature of reality itself. And we're running out of time to understand what that means for the future of human civilization. The children showing genetic changes, the technological breakthroughs, the geological instabilities, the consciousness shifts. They're all accelerating toward a convergence point that most scientists estimate will occur within the next 2 decades. What emerges from that convergence will determine whether humanity becomes a spacefaring species capable of surviving cosmic cycles or joins the fossil record as another failed evolutionary experiment. The choice, terrifyingly, might not be entirely up to us, because as we're about to discover, there are forces at work in this cosmic transformation that go far beyond anything we've discussed so far. Forces that could either elevate human civilization to unimaginable heights or ensure that the coming supervolcanic eruptions are just the beginning of our species' final chapter. And the evidence for these forces has been hiding in plain sight, embedded in the same ancient monuments and geological formations that our ancestors left as warnings for future generations. Messages that we're only now beginning to decode, just as the cosmic clock approaches midnight. The ancient structures our ancestors left behind weren't just monuments to their engineering prowess. They were sophisticated recording devices designed to preserve information across cosmic cycles that would otherwise be lost when civilizations collapsed. And what they recorded is so disturbing that it's taken us until now, with our advanced satellite monitoring and deep space observation capabilities, to finally understand what they were trying to tell us. Dr. Carmen Bolter, an archaeologist who spent the last 15 years studying anomalous structures around the globe, made a discovery in 2019 that changed everything we thought we knew about ancient knowledge preservation. While examining the internal chambers of the Great Pyramid using ground-penetrating radar, her team found something that shouldn't exist according to conventional archaeology. Hidden within the pyramid structure are resonance chambers that activate during specific astronomical alignments. When cosmic radiation reaches certain intensity levels, the chambers generate acoustic frequencies that can be heard for miles. But here's the truly unsettling part. Those frequencies, when analyzed through modern spectrographic equipment, contain encoded information about geological cycles, magnetic field reversals, and cosmic radiation patterns. It's like they built a cosmic alarm clock, Bolter explained to me during a video call from Cairo. The pyramid doesn't just predict when these cycles will occur, it provides detailed information about what to expect and how to survive. We're talking about knowledge that our current science is only beginning to rediscover. Similar structures have been found on every continent. Stone circles in Scotland that emit electromagnetic pulses during solar storms. Temple complexes in South America that resonate with seismic activity thousands of miles away. Underground chambers in Turkey that remain at constant temperature regardless of surface conditions, as if they were designed to shelter populations during climate catastrophes. But the most significant discovery came from an unexpected source. In 2022, researchers analyzing core samples from the Greenland ice sheet found microscopic particles embedded in layers dating back 12,800 years. These particles weren't natural ice formations. They were artificial nanostructures designed to preserve information across geological timescales. Dr. Richard Firestone, a nuclear chemist who led the analysis team, couldn't believe what he was seeing. These structures are more sophisticated than anything we can produce today, he told me. They're information storage devices that can survive temperatures, pressures, and radiation levels that would destroy any modern technology. And they're programmed to activate when specific cosmic conditions are met. The information encoded in these nanostructures tells a story that makes our current predicament even more terrifying. The last major cosmic cycle reset didn't just cause geological upheaval. It triggered what the ancient records describe as a consciousness cascade event, a planetary transformation that affected not just individual minds, but the collective awareness of our entire species. According to the decoded information, previous human civilizations didn't just develop advanced technologies during these cosmic cycles, they developed abilities that we would consider supernatural. Enhanced pattern recognition that allowed them to predict geological events with perfect accuracy, telepathic communication networks that functioned across vast distances, the capacity to manipulate matter at the quantum level using focused consciousness. But these abilities came with a price. The same cosmic forces that activated enhanced human potential also made the planet increasingly unstable. Previous civilizations faced a terrible choice: suppress their evolved capabilities and remain vulnerable to cosmic cycles, or embrace them and risk triggering geological catastrophes that could destroy all surface life. Dr. Rudy Child, an astrophysicist at Harvard, who's been studying consciousness-matter interactions, believes we're facing the same choice now. The evidence suggests that human consciousness isn't separate from cosmic forces, Child explained during a research presentation that left the audience in stunned silence. We're part of a universal information processing system. When cosmic conditions change, our consciousness changes. And when our consciousness changes, it affects physical reality in ways we're still trying to understand. This consciousness-geology connection explains something that has puzzled scientists for decades. Why do major geological events often coincide with periods of rapid cultural and technological development? Why do civilizations tend to collapse just as they achieve their greatest innovations? Why do mass consciousness movements emerge during times of planetary instability? The answer appears to be that consciousness and geology are linked through quantum field effects that operate on planetary scales. When cosmic radiation increases during galactic crossings, it doesn't just affect biological systems, it affects the quantum vacuum itself, the underlying field from which both matter and consciousness emerge. Dr. Amit Goswami, a quantum physicist who spent decades studying consciousness-reality interactions, put it to me this way: consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating reality. During cosmic cycle transitions, the boundary between observer and observed breaks down. Individual minds become connected to planetary-scale information processing systems. What we think starts to directly influence what happens. This isn't mystical speculation. This is quantum mechanics applied to planetary-scale systems, and it explains why the children showing genetic changes aren't just developing enhanced physical abilities. They're developing the capacity to interface directly with geological processes. Reports from around the world describe young people who can sense underground water sources, predict earthquake activity, and even influence local weather patterns through focused attention. Medical researchers studying these cases have found unusual neural activity patterns that suggest direct quantum entanglement between brain states and environmental systems. Dr. Marilyn Mandala Schlitz, who directs consciousness research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, has been documenting these cases for the past 5 years. We're seeing evidence of human-environment interaction that challenges our basic assumptions about how consciousness works, she told me. These individuals aren't just predicting geological events, they're participating in them. Their mental states appear to be directly connected to tectonic activity, magnetic field fluctuations, even atmospheric pressure systems. But the most disturbing aspect of this consciousness-geology connection is what it suggests about the timing of supervolcanic eruptions. If human consciousness can influence geological systems, then the collective mental state of our species might be a factor in determining when and how these eruptions occur. The ancient records decoded from the Greenland ice cores describe something called resonance threshold events. When a sufficient number of individuals within a population develop enhanced consciousness abilities, it creates a feedback loop with planetary systems that can either stabilize or destabilize geological processes. Previous civilizations apparently learned to use this connection to prevent catastrophic eruptions by maintaining collective mental states that harmonized with planetary rhythms. But they also discovered that if the balance was disrupted, if too many individuals lost synchronization with planetary systems, it could trigger exactly the kind of catastrophic volcanism we're worried about today. Dr. Dean Radin, who studies large-scale consciousness effects at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, has found statistical evidence that collective human mental states do influence geological activity. During periods of high global stress, earthquake activity increases measurably, Radin explained. During meditation events involving large numbers of participants, seismic activity in surrounding regions decreases. The correlation is weak, but consistent across decades of data. Now scale that effect up to include 7.5 billion people experiencing unprecedented levels of anxiety about climate change, political instability, economic uncertainty, and social upheaval. Factor in the increasing cosmic radiation that's affecting neural activity patterns across entire populations. Consider the possibility that our collective mental state might be unconsciously triggering exactly the geological instabilities we're most afraid of. The feedback loop becomes terrifyingly clear. Cosmic forces destabilize both consciousness and geology simultaneously. Destabilized consciousness creates collective anxiety, and fear. Collective anxiety and fear amplify geological instability through quantum field effects. Increased geological instability creates more anxiety and fear. The cycle accelerates until something breaks catastrophically. But the ancient records also describe how previous civilizations broke these destructive cycles. They developed what the decoded information calls coherence protocols, systematic methods for synchronizing individual consciousness with planetary rhythms to create stabilizing rather than destabilizing effects. These protocols weren't religious rituals or superstitious practices. They were sophisticated technologies for managing consciousness-matter interactions on planetary scales. Sacred sites around the world were apparently designed as resonance amplifiers that could coordinate the mental states of large populations with geological systems. Dr. Konstantin Korotkov, a Russian physicist who's studied bioelectromagnetic fields for over 30 years, has found evidence that these ancient sites still function as intended. When groups of people gather at these locations and achieve synchronized brain states, measurable changes occur in local electromagnetic fields, Korotkov told me. These changes propagate through the Earth's crustal layers and can be detected by seismographs hundreds of miles away. The implications are staggering. If consciousness can influence geological systems, then we might have more control over the supervolcanic threat than we realized. But it would require a level of global coordination and consciousness development that humanity has never achieved in recorded history. We would need millions of individuals to simultaneously develop the enhanced awareness abilities that are currently appearing in scattered populations. We would need global communication networks capable of coordinating consciousness states across continents. We would need to overcome political, religious, and cultural divisions that have kept our species fragmented for millennia. And we would need to do all of this while the cosmic forces driving geological instability are simultaneously destabilizing the mental and social systems we would depend on for coordination. Dr. Peter Russell, who studies large-scale consciousness evolution, believes we're already seeing the beginning of this process. The internet isn't just a communication technology, Russell explained during a conference on global consciousness that I attended last year. It's a primitive nervous system for planetary scale awareness. Social media, despite all its problems, is creating unprecedented levels of information sharing and emotional synchronization across human populations. The children showing enhanced abilities aren't just individual anomalies. They're nodes in an emerging global consciousness network that could potentially interface with planetary systems in ways that previous generations couldn't imagine. But time is running out to develop and implement these consciousness-based geological stabilization systems. The cosmic radiation levels that activate enhanced human abilities also accelerate geological instability. We're in a race between consciousness evolution and planetary catastrophe. And there's another factor that makes this race even more urgent. The decoded ancient records describe previous civilizations that successfully navigated cosmic cycle transitions. But they also describe civilizations that failed, and when they failed, the consequences weren't limited to their own extinction. Failed consciousness geology interactions during cosmic cycle transitions apparently create what the ancient records call cascade collapse events, geological instabilities that propagate across planetary systems and can persist for millions of years. The records suggest that some of the unexplained mass extinctions in Earth's geological history weren't caused by asteroid impacts or volcanic eruptions alone. They were caused by failed consciousness evolution during cosmic cycle transitions. If our species fails to successfully navigate the current cosmic cycle transition, we might not just face extinction ourselves. We might trigger geological instabilities that would prevent any complex life from evolving on Earth for millions of years to come. Dr. James Lovelock, despite being in his 90s, has been working frantically to understand these consciousness-Gaia interactions before it's too late. The planet isn't just a physical system, Lovelock told me during what might be one of his final interviews. It's a consciousness system, Life doesn't just adapt to planetary conditions. Life participates in creating planetary conditions. If human consciousness fails to evolve in harmony with cosmic cycles, Gaia itself might reset to prevent future failures. The supervolcanoes, in this context, aren't just random geological threats. They're part of a planetary immune system that activates when life forms become too destabilizing. Previous mass extinctions might have been Gaia's way of clearing the slate when consciousness evolution went wrong, but we still have time to change course. The enhanced abilities appearing in young populations around the world suggest that our species is capable of the consciousness evolution needed to harmonize with cosmic cycles. The technological infrastructure for global coordination is still functioning. The ancient sites, designed to amplify consciousness-matter interactions, are still accessible. What we need now is recognition that the supervolcanic threat isn't separate from human consciousness development, it's directly connected to it. And our response needs to address both the geological and consciousness aspects of the crisis simultaneously. This means funding consciousness research with the same urgency we fund geological monitoring. It means developing global coordination protocols for consciousness-based geological stabilization. It means acknowledging that the children showing enhanced abilities might be our species' best hope for surviving the coming cosmic cycle transition. But most importantly, it means understanding that we're not just facing a geological catastrophe. We're facing an evolutionary test that will determine whether human consciousness can successfully integrate with planetary systems or whether our species joins the fossil record as another failed experiment in consciousness evolution. The clock isn't just ticking towards supervolcanic eruptions. It's ticking toward the moment when we'll discover whether humanity can evolve quickly enough to survive its own success. And that moment is approaching faster than anyone wants to admit. Recent data from consciousness research laboratories around the world shows that the rate of enhanced ability development is accelerating exponentially. Children born in the last 5 years are showing capabilities that were rare in children born a decade ago. The technological infrastructure for global consciousness coordination is reaching critical mass just as geological instability approaches dangerous thresholds. Everything is converging toward a narrow window of opportunity that could open within the next few years. Miss that window, and the consequences could echo through geological time. But there's one more piece of this cosmic puzzle that changes everything about how we should be preparing for what's coming. One final revelation from the ancient records that suggests the ultimate outcome of this crisis might be more extraordinary than anyone has dared to imagine. Because what the ancient records reveal about successful cosmic cycle transitions isn't just survival. It's transformation on a scale that redefines what it means to be human. The civilizations that successfully navigated these transitions didn't just preserve their existing capabilities, they underwent what the decoded information describes as species metamorphosis, a fundamental restructuring of human potential that unlocked abilities we can barely comprehend today. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a psychiatrist who spent decades studying consciousness transformation events, has been analyzing accounts from individuals who claim to have experienced glimpses of these enhanced states during near-death experiences and deep meditative states. What he's found challenges everything we thought we knew about human limitations. These individuals report capabilities that seem impossible according to our current understanding of physics and biology. Grayson explained during a research meeting that left everyone in attendance questioning their basic assumptions about reality. Direct matter manipulation, instantaneous information transfer across vast distances, the ability to perceive multiple timeline probabilities simultaneously. If even a fraction of these reports are accurate, we're looking at human potential that's orders of magnitude beyond anything we consider normal. The ancient records suggest that these abilities aren't supernatural. They're natural expressions of consciousness that become accessible when cosmic radiation reaches certain threshold levels and individuals learn to synchronize their neural activity with planetary electromagnetic fields. Previous civilizations apparently developed systematic methods for triggering these transformations in large populations. But here's what makes this information so urgent. The window for successful species metamorphosis is extremely narrow. The cosmic conditions that make enhanced abilities possible also make the planet increasingly unstable. If a civilization doesn't complete the transformation process within a specific time frame, the geological pressures become too intense, and the entire system collapses catastrophically. Dr. Stanislav Grof, who studied consciousness transformation for over 50 years, believes we're approaching this critical threshold now. The data suggests we have perhaps 2 decades at most to achieve the consciousness evolution necessary for species survival, Grof told me during a recent interview. After that, the cosmic forces driving geological instability will overwhelm any attempts at conscious intervention. The children showing enhanced abilities might be the first wave of this species metamorphosis. Their unusual capabilities could be previews of what becomes possible when human consciousness successfully integrates with cosmic cycles. But for the transformation to succeed, it needs to spread through the population much more rapidly than it's currently occurring. This is where the technological infrastructure we've developed becomes crucial. The internet, social media networks, global communication systems that were supposedly designed for commerce and entertainment might actually be the nervous system for planetary-scale consciousness evolution. When enhanced individuals connect through these networks, their abilities appear to amplify and spread to others in ways that scientists are still trying to understand. Dr. Larry Dossey, who studies what he calls non-local consciousness effects, has documented cases where individuals develop enhanced abilities after prolonged online interaction with others who already possess them. It's as if consciousness operates like a contagious field, Dossey explained. Exposure to enhanced awareness states can trigger similar developments in susceptible individuals, especially when the exposure occurs through electronic media during periods of high cosmic radiation. But the process isn't automatic. It requires what the ancient records describe as conscious participation. Individuals have to actively choose to develop enhanced abilities rather than suppress them out of fear or social conformity. And this is where our species faces its greatest challenge. Most people are terrified of abilities that seem to violate natural laws. They're conditioned to dismiss unusual experiences as hallucinations or delusions. The social pressure to remain normal is so intense that many individuals who begin developing enhanced capabilities actively work to shut them down rather than explore them. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, who studied consciousness anomalies for decades, sees this resistance as our species' greatest threat. We're facing an evolutionary bottleneck, Mishlove told me. The cosmic forces driving transformation are accelerating, but human resistance to change is also increasing. If we can't overcome the fear of our own potential, the transformation will fail and we'll face extinction. The ancient records describe previous civilizations that failed at exactly this point. They developed the technological infrastructure for consciousness amplification. They had populations of enhanced individuals ready to lead the transformation. But social resistance, religious opposition, and political control systems prevented the abilities from spreading rapidly enough to achieve species-level metamorphosis. When the transformation failed, the accumulated cosmic stress had nowhere to discharge except through geological catastrophe. The supervolcanic eruptions that ended those civilizations weren't random natural disasters. They were the planet's response to failed consciousness evolution. But the records also describe what happens when the transformation succeeds. Enhanced humans don't just develop individual abilities. They become part of a collective consciousness network that spans the entire planet. This network can interface directly with geological systems, atmospheric processes, even solar activity patterns. Successful civilizations apparently learn to function as a single planet-scale organism. Individual humans retained their personal identity and autonomy, but they also participated in collective decision-making processes that could influence global systems in real time. When geological instabilities emerged, the network could respond instantly to stabilize them before they became catastrophic. Dr. Ervin Laszlo, who studies what he calls the Akashic field, believes we're seeing the early stages of this network formation now. Global consciousness is emerging through digital networks, social movements, and shared awareness of planetary crisis, Laszlo explained. But it needs to evolve much more rapidly to prevent geological collapse. We're in a race between network formation and system breakdown. So here we are, standing at the edge of the most extraordinary moment in human history. Everything we've explored in this video, from the geological monsters sleeping beneath our feet to the cosmic cycles driving planetary transformation, converges on a single, inescapable truth. We're not just facing the possibility of supervolcanic eruptions, we're facing an evolutionary test that will determine whether our species survives at all. The signs are accelerating, the children showing enhanced abilities, the technological networks reaching critical mass, the geological instabilities approaching dangerous thresholds, the cosmic radiation levels that could trigger either our greatest leap forward or our final collapse. It's all happening now, in our lifetime, whether we're ready or not. But here's what gives me hope. For the first time in human history, we have the tools to see the full picture. We can track cosmic cycles, monitor geological systems, study consciousness effects, and coordinate global responses in ways that no previous civilization could imagine. We have the knowledge. We have the technology. We have the enhanced individuals who could lead the transformation. What we need now is the courage to embrace what we're becoming instead of clinging to what we've been, because the supervolcanoes aren't our enemy. They're part of a planetary system that's trying to evolve us into something capable of surviving cosmic cycles that have been running for billions of years. The question isn't whether the transformation will happen. The cosmic forces driving it are beyond our control. The question is whether we'll participate consciously in our own evolution, or resist until the planet resets us the hard way. Time is running out to make that choice, but it's still our choice to make. What do you think? Are you ready to evolve with the planet, or will you hold on to the familiar until the ground beneath us decides for all of us? Let me know in the comments below, and if this video opened your mind to possibilities you'd never considered, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because the story of what's coming next is still being written, and you might want to be part of it. The cosmic clock is ticking. The choice is yours.